In 2010, my husband and I were delighted that I was pregnant with my first child. Based on regular appointments with midwives and consultants, I was confident that if there was anything wrong with me, and with my son, that this would be detected. My pregnancy was completely and totally normal. On Thursday the 24th of March at 12 noon, my waters broke, but labour did not begin. During the next 29 hours, I was checked by midwives 3 times, and it was confirmed that everything was fine. I'd been warned that infection might become a risk if labour didn't start, so I was booked for an induction just in case. The nature of the infection risk was not explained, so I wasn't particularly concerned. When my contractions finally began on Friday evening, I was actually relieved, despite being nervous. By 10:30 p.m. that night, my son, Adam Edward Cheshire, was born. The midwives and doctors took excellent care of us, and my husband and I were delighted to be the parents of a beautiful newborn baby boy. The following morning, my husband left hospital to get some much-needed rest, leaving behind a recovering wife and a healthy baby. But then Adam began to cry, and he wouldn't stop. He didn't want to eat or sleep, and being cuddled didn't help. First, the midwives checked Adam. And then, becoming concerned, they called the nurse practitioner, who also checked. Finally, I was told that Adam needed to be taken away for tests. I had no idea where he was being taken. During this time, a rare complication of childbirth developed for me, so I became partially paralyzed and in agonizing pain. I rang my husband in tears, telling him that I couldn't move and that Adam had been taken away. My husband would later describe this as the beginning of the darkest days of our lives. Over the next few hours, we discovered that Adam had been taken to neonatal intensive care, where his entire body began to shut down. He was suffering constant seizures. He had stopped breathing. His entire body was swelling up, and he was bright yellow with jaundice. The first time my husband saw him, he had an oxygen bubble over his face. He was blue, and his entire body was convulsing. The doctors put him onto a ventilator, a brain monitor, anti-seizure medication. He was catheterized, and he was put onto a cocktail of antibiotics. This resulted in a medically induced coma, so his vital signs were being monitored through an array of wires. Adam was being fed on an intravenous drip of hydrating solution because he couldn't cope with milk. We had no idea whether our precious baby boy would live or die. By Sunday, the doctors said that they suspected Adam had contracted Group B Strep meningitis. An infection meant nothing to me. By Monday, a lumbar puncture confirmed the diagnosis. Words cannot express how I felt when I learned that he got this infection from me. By Sunday night, Chris managed to get me into a wheelchair because I was determined to see my son. The last time I'd seen him, he looked like this. This is the sight that met me that night. We were only allowed to take one photo with no flash because of the seizures, and we thought it was the last photo we would ever have. I was not allowed to touch my baby because he was too fragile. We wanted the truth, so at our request, the doctors explained that Adam's life was very much in danger, and even if he lived, he could be facing an array of disabilities that ranged from brain damage to cerebral palsy, epilepsy, blindness, deafness, paralysis. The list went on. It got to the point that we were so numb we could barely even cry. Thankfully, my son is a fighter. Thousands of people around the world were praying for him. The dedication of the doctors and the nurses saved his life. We took this photo the first time he opened his eyes. Finally, on the 18th of April 2011, after spending his first 23 days of life in intensive care, Adam was allowed to come home. Adam is now 15 months old, and he is absolutely beautiful. However, he has been left with congenital nystagmus, meaning that his eyes wobble continuously from side to side. He peers out of his right eye in an effort to focus, and no one yet knows how this will affect his vision in years to come. Adam has also been diagnosed with auditory dysynchrony. It's a rare form of severe hearing impairment, which means that one part of his cochlea works, but the other part does not. So it's possible that he might be able to detect sound, but not to understand it. Imagine if you were listening to a staticky radio station all day. You can hear noise, but it's meaningless. He's constantly ill with one infection or another, and doctors are beginning to suggest that he might have reduced immunity and possible lung problems. And we've been warned that other disabilities or learning difficulties may appear over time. Adam remains under the care of 5 separate consultants at 4 hospitals. A teacher for the deaf from the local sensory inclusion service visits the house regularly. His health visitor will continue to visit until he's 5, and based on constant infections, he has regular GP's appointments, and he's often on prescription medication. We receive disability living allowance for Adam at the middle rate, and I receive carers allowance on his behalf. The support we receive by a team of professionals is beyond price to us, and we are so grateful that it is available. But this support comes at an ever-increasing cost to the NHS and to the government. The emotional and psychological costs to our family have been immense, and as you can see, we live with the scars. In my opinion, the risk-based approach to handling GBS amounts to playing Russian roulette with the lives of children, and my son nearly paid the ultimate price. Even though my precious boy is alive, and just a year old, his life is marked by disability. The ultimate irony is that I am Canadian, but as the child of British parents, I have dual nationality. In Canada, as you've heard, GBS testing is a routine part of prenatal care. How would our lives have been different if my husband and I had chosen to settle there? My son may have been protected from GBS and may not be disabled today. GBS testing is simple, safe, and affordable. It saves lives. It saves money. Please, if you are able, introduce GBS testing to the NHS. Don't allow more families to go through the trauma.